Today, we discuss 13 players who have been mocked to the Packers in the first round. Who makes sense and who doesn't? Sounds Gouda will let you know who they like at pick 23.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm cash.
Welcome in another episode of Sounds Gouda. Thank you, everyone, for coming back and taking a listen to us. I am one of your two co-hosts. My name is Rob Ralph. Next to me is my best friend, Jordan Olson. Appreciate you guys coming back in. Just know that we do have new content every Wednesday and Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please make sure to give us a like, sub, and follow us on those platforms. We would genuinely appreciate it. So for today, Jordan and I are both going to take a look at some of the popular mock drafts that have been published from certain places like ESPN, CBS, NFL Network, PFF, etc. For the Green Bay Packers. Talk a little bit about those prospects, what we like, what we don't like, and give you some more context surrounding that. So without ado, I will go ahead and start. As you know, with me, I like to start at the edge position, but Mike Green, edge from Marshall, who I am becoming a massive fan of and might be one of my early crushes. I've actually crushed it at the Senior Bowl, but he's 6'4", 248 pounds. He graded out at a 92.4 for a PFF grade from last year. Has a 4.57 40 projected 40. And then, some of his pros too, absolutely killed it at the Senior Bowl. We know that the Packers love their Senior Bowl prospects, elite speed, and 17 sacks last year. Some cons, small hands and arms, kind of a lighter, obviously edge player, small school, and from what I was hearing too, might have some had some off the field issues that might have led him from going to a big powerhouse type of school. So I wanted to provide that context in there as well. And then just some similar comps in there, but David Ojabo, and then Kwity Paye. And then Kwity Paye too as well for some similar comps to what he could be. Another one that I wanted to track here too, another popular one that has gone in more than a few different articles, Jalen Walker, very versatile linebacker from Georgia. And this is a composite too as well that I'll just mention as well. So Jordan, you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but what's the site that goes through and does all the mock drafts and how they rate them?
Oh, I had it earlier. From a journalism standpoint, I should have had it written down, but there is a website that compiles all of the consensus draft boards. So they take in the most popular draft boards and all of the the 200 most recent mock drafts, and they compile this into a ranking, right? So going back to Mike Green, right now, his consensus draft position, compiling all this data, is projected pick number 21, or that's his value. So there is some realistic value that he could be available around pick 23 for the Packers. So that makes sense that if he fell a little bit, that he could be there for Green Bay.
Yeah, and would definitely be a different pick for the Packers considering what he is, but I have no doubt that he'd come in and provide something new and unique that the Packers do not have, and I think he could contribute right away, depending on what we do in free agency too as well too. So there's a lot of context there. But anyways, Jalen Walker, the versatile linebacker from Georgia, with all this data, he's compiled at number 13 overall, so there's a good chance he could be gone. And for good reason. Almost 21 years old, measurables 6'2", 245 pounds, 73.1 PFF grade, playing in probably the most competitive, some could argue the Big Ten as well too, power conference in the SEC, for a 4.5 40 speed. And then so some of his pros, elite speed, pass rush ability, some of his cons, coverage skills, run defense, and then he can have some missed tackles though as well. But some comps that we wanted to compare him to Chris Braswell and also Derek Hall. So a couple of those prospects there. Anything you'd want to add there, Jordan?
Yeah, I would just say that, kind of talking about who's realistic and who isn't, right? We talked about Mike Green. One thing I can't find anywhere, I've searched every database, there's no age profile out there for Mike Green. I have no idea if he's 20 or 24, at this point in time.
He doesn't age, Jordan.
That would be great. But That will be a factor. As we know, the Packers do typically like to draft younger prospects, particularly in round 1, so they have more room to grow and develop. If Mike Green's 23 years old already, that may have an impact. In this case, Jalen Walker, he's only 20 years old at this point in time. He'll be
Very young.
21 during the season. That is something the Packers are going to be intrigued by. I think he's very light for the Packers. And, I guess as an edge player, right? The Jalen Walker profiles as more of a true stand-up off-ball linebacker. And I just don't know that makes sense for the Packers to take that in the first round. So this is going to be one of those ones where I'm going to say Jalen Walker doesn't make sense. He's also projected to go in the mid-teens. So I wouldn't get your hopes up that Jalen Walker will be a Green Bay Packer in 2025. We're talking about edge and linebacker players. So let's talk about a couple other popular guys, right? So Jack Sawyer, a lot of you probably know him, seen him play at the highest level. He's an edge player from Ohio State. He is a little bit of an older prospect. He's 22.7 years old, so going to be 23 at some point in time during the season here. He has an outstanding track record at Ohio State. He may not be the fastest guy, but he makes plays all the time. He's an outstanding run defender. He had 10 sacks and 16 hits, QB hits last year. And as we talked about, he's playing against the highest level competition. So I could see that translating into the NFL. He's kind of on the back end of the defensive end prospects that I really think can make a day one impact and be a game wrecker. But the Packers will have to decide if they want to spend a first round pick on an older prospect. So some of his comps are Jalen Phillips and Litu Latu, which, I think those are some pretty good guys to be comp to. Both young, though, and we'll see how they develop in their NFL careers. I like Jack Sawyer as a realistic option for the Packers. Right now, he's consensus pick number 35, so that would be a little bit of a reach, as we call it today. But that would make total sense for the Packers, considering they tend to reach and pick guys that they like that everybody thinks should be drafted 10 or 15 picks later. Realistic, I think, and addresses a major position of need for the Packers. So let's talk about a guy who I don't think is going to be there, but he was mocked to the Packers in one mock draft, James Pierce Jr., an edge from Tennessee. And if he did fall to pick 23, or the Packers traded up a couple spots to get him at like pick 18 or something, if he did fall, I would absolutely salivate, lose my mind if we did get James Pierce Jr. I haven't watched a ton of his tape because I think he's highly projected to be as like a top 10, top 12 pick. And I just don't know how realistic it is for the Packers to expect to have him available. He's got elite speed, 4.49 40 projected, 6'5", 243. So he could put on a little bit of weight as an edge defender. That would be my biggest concern outside of will he be available. The Packers would probably like to see him be a full 10 or 12 pounds heavier, even as a speed edge option. And he's still young. He's 21 years old. So some of the comps for him include Chop Robinson and Jalen Phillips. I would love him. Don't think that he's going to be there for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, sticking still on the edge as well. Another possible, actually right in there as far as the measurable goes for the Packers on the edge, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Only 21 years old, 21.2 years old, but 6'6", 290. Had a 79.5 PFF grade, 4.75 40, but he is a freak athlete for his size. There's no doubt about that. He actually did have a pretty good Senior Bowl, outstanding against the run. Some of his cons, lack obviously of college production, 4.5 sacks in 3 years, I believe it is. Needs to get a little bit more technical and add in some pass rush moves. 33 hurries though too as well. His ceiling is extraordinarily high, but it just all depends on how much, if he can get to that, if he can get the coaching, if he can level up. And he would probably be another person I consider more of an LVN, of a very high upside, but a big project type for the Green Bay Packers if they were to take him, but would definitely fit that 4-3 half lead defense and would be a big body there on the edge. Going back to the Georgia side, Mikael Williams, linebacker slash edge from Georgia. He is consensus at number 11 overall from all these mocks, but he's another really, really young prospect, 20 and a half years old, 6'5", 265 pounds. He's got good size, good weight, 78.3 PFF grade, projected at a 4.65 40. Great run defender, great pass rusher, 11 sacks in the last 2 years, especially in that conference. That's pretty impressive with the elite tackles and offensive linemen that the SEC produces. Cons, he can be an average tackler, so obviously he's going to need to work on that. And then just some comps of some people that he could look like, which this is obviously very intriguing, but Jermaine Johnson the second, and then Marshawn.
Yeah. And I really like him better than the other Georgia player that we talked about as an edge. He's got the height and weight profile. He's got the production. I think he's somebody that if he did fall, the Packers would be very highly interested in. So before we move into a run on cornerback, I am going to touch on another mock out there. Omar Norman Lott, a defensive lineman from Tennessee. I love the idea that we're considering defensive line. I'll just be quick to say it. Omar Norman Lott is not going to be a first-round selection, and if he was, I would be extremely surprised. Consensus has him at number 70 overall, which is more like a third-round grade, and that's kind of where Rob and I have tended to draft him in previous mock drafts before. He could certainly be a Green Bay Packer, but he is not going to be the Packers selection at number 23, number 31 if they trade back. But I do like him. He was a Senior Bowl prospect. He's shown some good pass rush from the interior and comp to two players that the Packers have really liked in the past, Keanu Benton and Michael Hall Jr. So one of the most popular picks for the Packers has been Jahdae Barron, a cornerback safety prospect from Texas, projected to go in the back end of the second round. Consensus has him as number 27. I really like Barron. I've seen a variety of things from him, though. I've seen him profiled best inside as the slot, as he's only 5'11", 200 pounds. But there are people that saying that he can get it done on the outside. He played safety. He's probably a very similar prospect to Shavon Bullard at this point in time. So if he could be an outside guy, I would love to take him in the first round. If he is Shavon Bullard 2.0, that would be a little redundant with what we have right now on this team. And just a note, he is a little bit of an older prospect. He's already 23 years old, and some of his comps, Kool-Aid McKinstry and Patrick Surtain Jr. And I mean, if you hit at either one of those levels, particularly the Patrick Surtain Jr., Patrick Surtain II, that would be chef's kiss at a position of need for the Packers.
Yeah, so just some more cornerbacks, though, too, here as well. Another one here I really like, Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback from Notre Dame. I believe he did end up getting hurt, but very, very, very young, 20 years old, but 6 foot, 190 pounds, 71.4 PFF grade, a projected 4.39 40. Some really good pros from him, but 59.6 quarterback rating when targeted. That's really good. Obviously, Notre Dame went to the college football championship this year, so had a very solid defense. Cons, poor tackling, seemed to get worse over the last few years, and then 0 interceptions last year, which is a little bit crazy. 9 in the previous 2 years. So you know that he can do it. So, you know, if that's injuries, obviously, from last year and whatever else it might be, but some certain comps from him, Andrew Booth Jr., and then also Greg Newsome II. And Benjamin Morrison currently is projected overall at the consensus number 30. Sticking with the cornerbacks, another popular one, Shavon Revel Jr., the cornerback from East Carolina. Overall, for all the mocks, he's projected at number 31. But a little bit on the older side, almost 23 years old. He's 22.8 years old, 6'3", so very tall, 193 pounds, 0.0 PFF grade, so graded out very well, 4.440. Again, too, when he was targeted, only produced a 56.5 quarterback rating. Very good and press man, Shrine Bowl, and got better with every year that he was out there playing. Cons, average tackler and run defender, and only 3 interceptions in the last 3 seasons. So maybe some ball hawking, not quite of the ball hawking cornerback that, obviously we would probably be wanting to get, but some good comps for him too. Sauce Gardner, which if he's Sauce Gardner, then just throw whatever I just said out the window. We definitely want him. And then Christian Gonzalez, the versatile cornerback from the New England Patriots.
So we're going to flip over to the offensive side really quick and cover a couple offensive linemen. Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State. He's consensus number 17, 22 years old. He is a Packers type in terms of height and weight, 6'5", 310. Again, played on the national championship Buckeyes, so, played at the highest level. He's a great pass blocker, 0 sacks, 0 hits allowed in 2024, has a lot of experience starting at left tackle at a premier blue blood program. Some cons, he's an average run blocker, but his number one comp is Jordan Morgan. So take that or leave it. You might love that, but that just goes to show you that he truthfully is a Packers type. Where I have some issues with this selection is process. I'm not sure we need to take another offensive tackle in the first round, but I do see a situation where maybe he's ranked like 15th overall on the Packers big board, and some of the players that they really loved at edge and corner have gone, and they just say, hey, you know what? He's Rasheed Walker's replacement or can win that job next year, and let's take him because we love him, right? Another offensive tackle, Josh Cornelly Jr. from Oregon. He unfortunately was on the wrong side of that Mike Green blow-up play from the Senior Bowl, but he does project to be a first-round selection still and is very good. He's younger too, 21 years old. Another Packers type, 6'4", 315. Has really good movement skills, projected to run like a 5-flat 40. Senior Bowl, great pass blocking, only allowed 1 sack last year. Some of his cons are shorter arms. Again, one of his number one comps was Jordan Morgan, but also comp to Elijah Vera Tucker. Again, this only makes sense to me if the Packers board fell apart with some of those other positions of need, but wouldn't mind it. Well, I would hate it, to be honest, if we took an offensive tackle first round, but if he fell into the second and we wanted some depth there, I would kind of like him then. So, last one, Rob.
Yeah, so another popular one and consensus number 16 overall. Luther Burden III, the wide receiver from Missouri, 21 years old, 5'11", 208 pounds, 77.9 PFF grade, 4.41 40. Some of his pros, a very good deep threat, only 11.1 yards per reception last season. Some cons. Blocking production dropped off last year and was better in the year previous, better as a sophomore. Some comps, and not some good ones, but Kadarius Toney and then Jahan Dotson. I know that there has been some people, that have been drumming pretty heavily for Luther Burden, and I feel like you're either very, very for him or you're very, very against him. Unfortunately, I think for both Jordan and I, we are very, very both against Luther Burden for the Packers, but can totally understand. Very ebb and flow, it seems like, for him. Not as consistent as somebody I think you'd want for the Packers. So I don't think that this is something realistic, but he is projected to go within the first 20 picks, which is interesting.
Not my cup of tea as a first round pick. I think that he's redundant to a lot of things that the Packers have already. Terrible blocker. I don't know. I don't love the tape either.
Terrible blocking on itself is not going to allude well to him getting any playing time in Green.
Matt LaFleur is not going to like that very much, especially if you're coming and trying to be like the third wide receiver on this team. You need to block in year one, right? So to kind of bring it to an edge, Rob, I'm going to take Mike Green off the table because we mocked him in our mock draft. We obviously love Mike Green, but give me the one guy that you think makes the most sense for the Packers from this list, and I'll give you mine outside of Mike Green.
Yeah, just taking a look back at it. So considering all these players are available, right, to the Packers?
Yeah, I mean, we'll play the game that they're all available, although we have acknowledged like 3 or 4 of them probably are not going to get anywhere near pick number 23.
Yeah, the one I think that is most intriguing to me is James Pierce Jr. He is just excellent again, brings a different type of element to the Packers, gives really good speed, kind of gives me like Shaq Barrett type of vibes, I guess, who obviously did really well for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and previously the Denver Broncos where he was drafted. But where I think that they're going to go most likely, and I've seen this quite a bit from Goody, and depending on what happens with Jair Alexander and or Eric Stokes, right? We're going to need a lot of depth, even if we do sign a free agent like a Paulson Adebo. So I really like Shavon Revel Jr., the cornerback from East Carolina, him or Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback from Notre Dame. I think that those are probably the more realistic type of picks. So, but if I had to pick one, the one that I want is James Pierce Jr. So, and then the one I think that the Packers would take is probably more of a Shavon Revel Jr.
Yeah, given that there would be availability, I really like Mykel Williams as an edge player for the Packers.
Yeah,
we talked about him.
He likes the Georgia prospects too.
He does. There's a lot of things that would make sense for Green Bay there if he were available. So watch some Mykel Williams tape. But, that's all we've got for you today, folks. As always, more Packers content from Sounds Gouda every Wednesday and Saturday. So make sure to share this with your family and friends. Subscribe on YouTube, hit that notification bell if you really like the content and want to, see when our episodes come out. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please follow us on those platforms as well, too. That does move the needle. You can connect with us on X at Sounds Gouda or, Olsen Jord, Rob being Sounds Gouda with 3 A's and Olsen Jord is my profile. But until next time, Packers Nation, have a Gouda morning, a Gouda afternoon, and a Gouda night. Go Pack.
Go Pack.
Been wanted this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey.